All right, guys, we are back with Will from MLS Moves to talk about a subject that he probably knows even better than I do, and that is Major League Soccer. It's a 30-year-old league now. We're at the precipice of the 2026 World Cup, and yet it somehow feels like MLS is not really taking advantage of this moment. And like I said in the video last week, I think you have a pretty nuanced perspective on MLS's flaws alongside their successes. And I want to hear your thoughts. What are the top three things that you think MLS needs to be doing better in order to really take advantage of this moment we're at? This inflection point in American soccer with the Club World Cup this year, and then next year we have the World Cup here. Why is MLS not taking advantage of it?
Well, the three most important things, I believe, is the calendar, which we'll expand on, because I think being on the Euro calendar is the move for the league, especially for viewership, having the playoffs, which is what they sell is the most important thing, being viewed, not competing against the NFL, college football, all because they're not going to win that race. You saw the MLS Cup had worse ratings than the USL Championship and worse than the NWSL Championship, which is not good.
No, that was with an LA team in it, right? A big market team.
And New York and LA.
Yeah.
The two biggest markets, and it still flopped 400,000 views, which is unacceptable. And that ties into the Apple TV deal. The Apple TV deal has been a flop. Anybody saying it hasn't is in denial. They are an Apple stan. They have 3 iPhones for some reason. I don't know why, but they are just complete delusion. They are delusional and in complete denial. The Apple TV deal has been a nightmare for MLS, and it proves, Pete, no matter who you have in your league, they're not going to get people to sign up through a paywall and to watch every game. They're just not going to you're not going to get the casual fans that way, because if Messi can't do it, nobody can do it. And that's just the truth. It's just truth. And people don't like to hear that. And the number 3, relax the roster rules. Make them simpler. Give teams more freedom to sign who they want. Get rid of the discovery rights. No, Inter Miami, you did not discover Kevin De Bruyne. Okay, no matter how much credit you want for that. No,
are we sure though? I mean,
yes.
They might have discovered him a long time ago before they even existed. We don't know.
Maybe
it's a construct. Will.
I guess it depends on who you ask. And Greg Berhalter sure as hell did not discover Neymar at the Chicago Fire. That did not happen. Okay, I can confirm that did not happen. So there's just some simple things, Pete. It sounds like it's crazy, but it's not. Just some simple things, and it kind of makes you go crazy because you think this just feels like common sense. How are these people not getting this? How are they not understanding that these simple changes? But those are my 3 things. I'm sure we'll go into depth on all those, but the calendar, the TV deal, and the salary cap rules. Those are my biggest things.
So let's start with the Apple TV deal, because I think that's a big one. MLS signed this deal with Apple TV 2.5 years ago now. It's a 10-year deal, $250 million, right? A year in order to have exclusive broadcasting rights. And it seemed like a good deal in some ways at the time because it was more money than they were getting offered anywhere else. But there's 2 things that are a problem with that. Number one, MLS was still responsible for their own game day production cost, which is huge. And when you take that $250 million per year and you divide that by 30 teams, even before you cut out the production costs, that comes out to, I mean, I don't know if I can do the math quickly, but less than 10 million per team, right?
It's like 8.5, I think.
8.5 million, which is about what the salary cap is. That doesn't even cover the salaries for your roster. You know what I mean? Because even the poor teams in MLS spend about that, right? 8 or 9 million every year just on salaries alone. But it was the best deal that MLS could get at the time. And there's an element of like, okay, it's a bad deal because it's behind a paywall, right? But what could they have done differently? Like, were they being offered more by anybody else?
I don't know if they were offered more, but I think they panicked because this is like maybe a year after like things really started to settle down with all the pandemic stuff. There was a lot of uncertainty with people and their finances, and like they were making cuts because a lot of people were losing money. I think it was a panic move. And it was also a move that they kind of bet on themselves. And what I mean by that is they had a deal with Apple TV for $250 million base fee, but they also had this part where if they hit a certain subscription threshold, they would get a percentage of that. So MLS technically could make more money if they had more subscribers, but they didn't clearly hit that threshold. I mean, their numbers are terrible. I don't even know if they have a million. They probably have a million subscribers right now, but that's because they've been giving it out for free. T-Mobile, DraftKings, $5 bet gets you the whole season for free. So that maybe they do, but those aren't being paid for. They're free, so they're not
Well,
making
also
money
the
off
season
this.
ticket holders all get it for free, right? So
All the
those are
season ticket
diehards.
holders. Yeah, all the season. So there's probably like maybe 300,000 season ticket holders across all 30 teams in the league. So yeah, about 300,000. But I think, obviously hindsight's 2020, Pete, right? But I was skeptical. I was happy as far as the production would be better. I don't know if you ever watched the MLS games on ESPN Plus a couple years ago. It was shit. It looked like someone was recording off an Android phone or something in the stand. It was terrible. So the production, I don't think anybody would say the quality of the game as far as what you're seeing, like the production value is not bad. It looks good.
Yeah.
But it's just the extra barriers, the steps going to Apple to have and paying for it to watch it is inconvenience. And people, I hate to say this, but most people are lazy, man. They're not going to go out of their way to go watch a game. They're just not going to. It's all, most people, especially Americans, are all about convenience. The word is convenience. They don't want to have to do all these obstacles to go watch something, especially if they're not that passionate about it. So I think MLS, now there's supposedly like an out in this deal 5 years in for both parties. I'm going to be very curious to see if either party wants to opt out early. I mean, Apple apparently is losing $1 billion a year on just Apple TV in general. $1 billion. I mean, that's not much money to Apple, but it's still not good. Like, you're going to cut your losses at a certain point. And then MLS has just been completely decimated, I think, with viewership. I mean, 400,000 for that final we talked about, both big markets, man. I mean, we have Messi in this league, Pete. Can you honestly imagine thinking the MLS has Messi, Lionel freaking Messi, and he's actually good still, right? He's not washed. He's still good, man. He's still probably a top 5, top 10 player in the world, especially if I think he could play in any team in the world still. That's just my opinion. But can you imagine having him in America, in MLS, and then coming away with this after it's all said and done saying, man, that really didn't help at all. Like, that was actually a huge disappointment. Like, that'd be chaos for MLS.
I think Messi is a gimmick. And this is the problem with MLS. I think they're holding on too much to gimmicks, right? It's like, oh, look, we have Messi. Come watch our games. And the hope being that if you come watch Messi, you're then going to want to stay and get into the league itself. But I think what they're finding is the first part is true. Messi is a draw. There are people who may watch a game for Messi, and certainly in person, right? Wherever he travels, they sell out their stadium. They're moving it. Kansas City moved it to Arrowhead Stadium, I believe it's called, but that's not enough to get people to stay, because then the very next game, same with Chicago Fire, they just had Miami there and they sold out Soldier Field, 60,000. Great. What was the attendance next game? 14,000. It's not enough to get people to stay. It is a gimmick. And I hate that MLS is still trying to rely on gimmicks, because if you want to build a long-term fan base, it's not the people who will watch one game to care about Messi. They're the people who really want to buy into something, and you haven't given enough people a reason to buy in. There are various reasons. The lack of quality is a big one. The lack of stakes is a big one. Those are the two things that I think people don't really buy into MLS. That brings us to the next topic, which is the salary cap. MLS is still operating in 1.0 mode, in my opinion, where it was necessary when it was a young league just getting started to have this salary cap in place in order to keep the investment costs low to attract potential investors. But I think MLS has outgrown that now. And I think they really need to ask themselves, is this salary cap, and not just the salary cap, but all the weird rules surrounding the salary cap, right? GAM, TAM, this, young DP, old DP, discovery rights, whatever. Like, those are just there are so many more. I don't even understand them. And you and I probably don't fully understand all of them. And we're soccer fans in this country. It is holding the league back from really creating high quality soccer that is really fun to watch. What are your thoughts there? What do they need to do with this salary cap, right? Which is currently at, what is it? I think 6.2 million roughly, plus the DPs, plus some TAM GAM money that's like tradable. What do they need to do?
Well, I think the biggest person or the most, I think the person to blame for this is Don Garber. Now, some people give him a free pass. I think you and I have always been critical of Don Garber and think he could do more. People say one of the counterpoints I always hear is, well, he's just doing he's doing the owner's bidding. Like he doesn't have that much influence. That is complete bullshit. He is hired to advise these owners what is best for the league going forward and what will help elevate the play, the revenue, whatever it may be, right? I mean, obviously, he's had something to do with, the $600 million expansion fees that they're getting and like doing that. But like he also has influence on what the roster rules will be. And my biggest problem with Don Garber, Pete, is that if you have a guy, think about this, he's been the commissioner since 1999, 26 years, right? My problem with Don Garber, first of all, that's just one voice for too long. You need to have some fresh perspective in there. That's just too much, man. Like, damn, the guy was literally not to age myself, but he took over when I was 4 years old, man. I mean, fuck, I'm 30 now. It's crazy. Yeah. But the problem with him is that when you see a league at its worst, how can you see it at its best? You're always going to have that in the back of your mind of just being a little timid, little scared to maybe take that jump because you always have like some PTSD about the league almost folding, right? That's when he took over. I think that he's got to be the first thing they got to get rid of. Get some fresh perspective. A guy who is in MLS, you said they're still in MLS 1.0. Get someone who can bring him to MLS 2.0 or 3.0 or 4.0, whatever the case may be. And like invest some money, man. Like you can't just have Messi in your league and expect everybody just to come running to your league. How is LAFC and LA Galaxy getting Pete to go watch their games? How are they recruiting you to go say, I want to go watch one of these? And here's the thing, you have two teams to choose from, and neither of them are speaking to you. Neither of them, which is just pathetic. And people say that spending isn't going to, I have people say all the time, spending is not going to change anything. It's not going to make the league better. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about?
Not true.
I mean, you have to get talent. You have to spend money, and to spend money, you got to increase the salary cap. Now, the league is, just to be completely fair, the league has spent more now than it was 10 years ago. They didn't have TAM. They didn't have U22s or any of that 10 years ago. It is increased, but it's just not where it needs to be. We know what it could be. We know the potential. They're just slow walking the hell out of it. I mean, Pete, they've had 3 DPs for 14 years now. Yeah. 14 years, dude. They haven't changed that rule at all. Or I think Filippo said he wants to go down to 2 DPs and increase the salary cap. There's all, I could be persuaded either way on like how you could do it. But the fact that Messi is making 3 times what the salary cap doesn't even make sense. Like, no. Try explaining that to a soccer fan. I mean, there's like a cap hit for a DP. It's like 500, 600K, but that doesn't make any sense. Like there's just too much complication. They don't know what the hell they're doing. I feel like they have to hire an expert to help the GM understand what the hell's going on. I think simple is better. Like don't complicate it, because then it's like, you mentioned the Galaxy. We talked about the Galaxy a little bit in our last episode about the parity and how it's killed them because of all the salary cap rules, and they have to get rid of players. They can't afford to keep them because they won. There's just a lot of complications. That shouldn't be a thing. Like, why is a team being punished for being good? Like, you want them to be bad again? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. And, people will say, well, we have salary cap in other sports, right? It's like, yeah, but the other sports are not competing with the rest of the world. Like, everybody wants to play in the NBA. Croatians, French, Spaniards. Their dream is to one day get to the NBA if you're a basketball player, for example, right? And it frustrates me because I think that MLS is too focused on trying to get NFL fans, NBA fans to come watch soccer. And it's like, that's not who you need to be getting. You need to be getting soccer fans in this country that love the game already with a passion. And they don't care about MLS for lots of reasons. I think lack of stakes is a big one, and I think lack of quality is the other one. So many times MLS games to me feel like exhibition games. I'll go to an MLS game mid-season, and it just feels like a fun exhibition game. It doesn't feel like, well, what's the cost if one team loses? Is the coach really going to be under fire? Is the team going to get pushed into the relegation zone? Where's the stakes? Why should I care about the outcome of this game? It just feels like a fun afternoon of soccer. And it almost just feels like this exhibition game. And I think this is where ProRel, which we talked about last week with USL, could change everything. Because imagine living or dying with like, oh my God, we're so close to the relegation zone. We can't afford to lose this game against the Red Bulls. come on, come on. Yes, we scored. Let's go. Okay, we can do this. Oh, we didn't get relegated. Or we get relegated. And people are like, this is the big fear. Oh, what if teams get relegated? I think with a pure system that you have, you can still have parachute payments to teams who do get relegated, right? You can do it in such a way where it's not a huge financial drop-off. So let's say you merged MLS with USL and you had 4 divisions now. And MLS teams, even in big markets, could get relegated because it's based on your play on the field. Now the fan has to feel that. You have to feel that low in order for the highs to be high. You have to feel the pain of relegation, just like Norwich fans felt when they got relegated from the Premier League. And now that pain turns into, all right, well, let's get back up, right? Let's go. Let's get, the possibility still exists for us to get promoted again. And so let's feel that pain and let's turn that pain into resilience and strength and go back there and try again next year. And the hope, the possibilities, right? It's the hope that kills you, the hope that you can get up there. It's romantic and it's beautiful and it's terrifying and it mirrors life, right? That's the thing about promotion relegation is it mirrors life. You have ups, you have downs, you have your highs, you have your lows, and dealing with that shit is part of being a human being. And soccer so beautifully encapsulates that, a system of a promotion and relegation especially, because you have to deal with the ups and downs. That is what life is all about. But if there was no death, if there was no suffering, how can you enjoy pleasure, right? If there's no pain, pleasure is meaningless, right? So if you just, I know it's a weird metaphor to use, but if you think about it, it's almost like MLS has created a league with no pain and only pleasure. And so the pleasure then becomes meaningless. Winning is great, but it's not as cool because you never really experienced leaving the league, like you don't really experience the pain of relegation.
Yeah. And I've always heard, what is good if there is no bad? How do you know what it is? I mean, what is good if there is no bad? So yeah, I know, I agree. And this whole 18 teams making the playoffs is just bullshit. It's like, hey, the season doesn't matter. You can just be terrible and you make the playoffs. That's stupid. Okay. I think, Pete, in our lifetime, hopefully, it depends on when they acquire USL or if they ever do. But if we're just being optimistic, MLS, right? If this continues to be the number 1 division in the country, if we're lucky, MLS will adopt a pro rel system, but it's going to be on their terms because they always have to do their weird spin on things. They don't ever do things like the global game does, right?
Yeah.
I think in a best case scenario, we get an MLS 1 and an MLS 2. 2 divisions, there's nothing below that in a pro rel. But I'll be honest with you, and maybe it's just desperation on my part, I would take that over what we currently have. I would take 2 divisions because at least in the first division, if you're really bad, then you're going to get relegated to the second division. And if you're a shitty team in the second division and you're just going to stay cellar dwellers for the entire time until either the team is sold or the fans just give up and say, okay, I'm not supporting this team anymore. You've been in the second division at the bottom of the table for 10 years. I'm fucking done with it, man. I'm not doing this anymore. But yes, you just, and I hear players talk about this, and I think this is a big issue, Pete. They talk about, I went to Liga MX, games matter more, the intensity, the fans, the environment, it just felt different. The competition was better. Yeah. MLS does feel like they're on cruise control for a lot of the season. Like, it doesn't matter. The Galaxy we talked about, they haven't won a game this year. They're like 5 draws, 3 losses, no wins or something like that. Like, if they lose 3 more games, they could still make the playoffs, like I said. But do they even care? Like, does it honestly, like, do they actually care right now? Not the fans. The fans care. I know that. But the players, like, what's their motivation? They are the last team in the Western Conference, but they're only like, and I can look this up, I think they're maybe 12 points out of the last playoff spot right now, which is 4 wins.
So if you win 4 games, now you're back in the playoffs.
Yeah. And there's, let's see, 30 or 24 games left. That's doable, right? There's just not the disparity in talent where you can't do that. Like, the talent is close to where they could have a run like that at the end of the season. And people call this the Ladero effect. The Seattle Sounders were terrible, fired their coach Ziggy Schmidt in 2016, hired Brian Schmetzer as the interim manager. They signed Nico Ladero. They were out of the playoffs, Pete. They weren't going to make the playoffs. They signed Nico Ladero, went on this crazy run, and won MLS Cup for the first time after they've been trying for years. So and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about the calendar, but that's why I don't like this, the way MLS is set up. It just feels like they tell their fans the season doesn't matter until the summer. Then we start to really try. And how can that be good for your quality?
Yeah.
If your players don't feel the intensity half of the season.
Yeah. And that's why it feels like exhibition. I wanted to talk to you, Will, about the topic that you actually mentioned first. I think it's something you're very passionate about, is the potential change to the calendar. MLS has been signaling that they are considering changing the MLS calendar. Could you walk us through what that could potentially look like and why you think it's so important?
So right now they currently play February to December. Teams who don't make the playoffs, their season ends in October. Okay. So if you have a playoff run, you'll probably end sometime in November. If you make the MLS Cup, it's December. Currently, the way it's structured right now, Pete, and this is bad too. If you don't make the playoffs, you don't play for 4 months into the next regular season. What serious soccer league has a 4-month off season? That's unheard of. That's insane. With the way it would be changed, I think it would drop down to about 2.5 months, which is a little better, right? That's a little better. It would go from the February to December schedule to I think it's early August to the first week of June. And the playoffs would be the entire month of April. They would take a winter break because obviously there's climates in the United States or Canada where you just can't play outside or you don't want to in January. They would take a 6-week break, which I think the Bundesliga does as well. They take like a 5-week break because it's too cold in Germany. Yeah. So a lot of people get upset about that. But the reason why I think that this would be a good thing is because it would have us aligned with the world calendar or like the major leagues calendar, right?
Right.
Most people don't want to sell their best players in January, halfway through the season. That's a secondary transfer market, right? That's when teams are like, maybe making a final push. They're not trying to sell their best players.
Right.
So that's when MLS season starts. So MLS is like the primary window where people do business is in the summer, the second half of the season, which we talked about, which is detrimental to teams, in my opinion, for business. So that from that perspective, change the transfer window, being on the same transfer window as other leagues would help, probably sell players some more, be able to acquire better players at the beginning of your season. But the most important thing, I can't emphasize this enough, Pete, is that people don't want to watch MLS when college football and the NFL are on. They don't want to watch it. The playoffs right now are right during the college football season in the NFL. Did you know that the MLS Cup final was on the same day as the SEC, the Big 10, the Big 12 championship? Who's watching that over that?
Nobody.
And that's not me being a hater.
Wouldn't you have the same issue with the Super Bowl and the NFL playoffs in January and February?
Well, that we talked a little bit about how the season kind of dies down, right? You would have a lull, I guess, like there would be people, but also you have to think the playoffs would be in May now. So you're competing with the NBA playoffs and NHL playoffs, which isn't ideal, but I would rather compete with NBA playoffs in an NFL regular season game. The NFL regular season game gets 4 times the viewership of an NBA playoff game. And plus you could schedule around it because they don't play every day in the playoffs. They play like, I think it's Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays. So there's ways to maneuver that, right? But why would you want your most important? We're told, Pete. They tell us, hey, the playoffs are the most important time. That's decides not the season, the regular season table. It's the playoffs that decide your champion. Why the hell would you want to play that against the NFL?
Yeah.
Why would you who's watching that? I just don't understand. You want to have the least amount of competition as you possibly can. Right. And also too, this is an underrated thing. I live in a area where I have all 4 seasons. You obviously live in LA. It's hot as hell. People talk about the cold a lot, but I don't think people talk about the heat enough. Who wants to go watch a game in 96-degree weather? That's not enjoyable, right? I mean, so I think that there's a bias where people talk about the cold weather and why this couldn't work. That's the biggest counterpoint is the weather, but it could work. There's many ways to do that. But I mean, would you rather watch a game in 20-degree weather or would you rather watch a game in 100-degree weather? Because in Texas, it gets fucking brutal, man.
Yeah, no, it is brutal for sure. I don't know if I care about the weather as much myself, right? And this is from a guy who's lived in Chicago. I used to go to Chicago Fire games in March where it was brutal, but I didn't care. You wear a big parka and earmuffs and a beanie and you're okay, and gloves, and it's not so bad. So I agree. And also you could do things where the northern teams like Minnesota, Chicago, Boston, New Jersey, they play, because even February can still be pretty cold in a lot of these places. But you could have 1 month where they mostly play away games, right?
Yeah.
That's not the end. world. But there's another aspect to this that I want to hear your thoughts on is the transfer window. The issue right now is I think MLS teams feel like their primary transfer window before the season starts, they're unable to acquire players because a lot of teams don't want to sell midway through their seasons. When you're trying to get guys from Europe, teams aren't willing to sell. And also, when teams want to buy players from MLS, they're trying to buy them in the summer. But a lot of MLS teams are like, we're halfway through our season here. We can't afford to lose this player. And so aligning with the global calendar, it's not just the European calendar, it's the global calendar, would make it easier to transfer players in and out of MLS for their actual value instead of skewed values based on poor timing. What are your thoughts there?
No, I agree completely. You're not, teams aren't going to want to sell their best player in January halfway through their season when they're competing for a spot globally. They're just not going to do that, even though it's MLS's start of the season. And during the summer window, I mean, you're halfway through the season. I don't. And also, Pete, how long does it take to integrate players into the system, or into the team? You don't have a preseason train with them. You're kind of just throwing them in. They're going to have to probably get fit because they just took 2 months off because every other league in the world aren't playing during the summer. So by the time they're actually integrated in the team, it's probably like maybe mid to late September. So you only have 1 month of the regular season left. It just doesn't make any sense. I don't think it makes any sense. And an MLS team is kind of signed their own death warrant if they sell their best player in the primary transfer window, because then you're saying, hey, I'm selling my best player in the summer halfway through the year. Might as well just pack it in. Hey, Cucho Hernandez, we're going to sell you at Columbus. We're going to sell you for $20 million. They didn't happen, but just an example, sell you to Real Betis in the summer. And then you're just kind of like, well, I mean, why would you sell our best player halfway through the year? We were contenders in this league. I mean, what are we doing here? So yeah, I mean, it makes total sense. You want to be aligned on the transfer window with the other big leagues so that you can do the most effective business you possibly can. Most people, and Cucho Hernandez was sold in January to Real Betis, but he was sold for like 12 million. He's a pretty good player. I would say he's actually worth more than 12 million. I'd say maybe like 16 or 17 million. But I don't know if as many teams are wanting to do business halfway through the year as they would in the summer. I think you probably could have sold him for more if you waited to the summer to sell him.
Well, Thiago Almada went for what, 23 million? Oh,
yeah.
no, I'm sorry, not Almada. Almiron, right? He went for some insane price tag. Alphonso Davies actually went for something similar. I think if you look at both of those players, I don't think there's maybe Alphonso Davies, yes, but I think Almiron and Cucho are probably not that far away. And you're right, the price was double for Almiron. So I do think they could have been able to get more for Cucho if it was in the summer rather than in January. Will, this has been enlightening and refreshing to talk to you about all this. We can only hope that I think through public pressure and the fans using their voice, which whether or not people want to believe it's true, I think does have an impact. Because they watch social media, they watch independent media, they watch where people's voices are and what they're saying. I mean, we know this for a fact. Recently on Twitter, and there's many examples of this, but the most recent one was, I think it was Doug McIntyre or one of these guys that posted where, Pochettino and his assistants were going to be scouting for on a particular weekend. It was all MLS games. And the blowback in the comments was so harsh that they deleted that tweet, which means they do care. They do care. They're watching and they're going, wow, the fans are mad at us. As much as Greg Berhalter believes that online fans are not real people, it does seem like the powers that be believe that is true. And so I do think having these conversations and voicing our opinions and saying what we want matters, because that is the only way to effect change with the amount of power that we have, a collective voice, right? And reality is people vote with their wallet, they vote with their eyeballs, right? And I think if MLS were to implement some of these changes, they would see an impact in both eyeballs and wallets, and probably for the better. So thank you for your thoughts, Will. Guys, like I said, if you have not subscribed to MLS Moves yet, now is the time to do so. You get lots of good content, including some great debates. You had one with Alexi Lalas and Filippo Silva, some guy we might have heard of before. There's a lot of good content there for free, like great content. So go check it out. Make sure you subscribe. Smash the like button on this video too. Any last thoughts, Will?
Well, you brought up a good point about the fans having some, more power than they think. Me, you, Tack, Adam, Vince, I think collectively we all force Soccer Federation's hand to get Greg Berhalter out. So yes, I just say if you have frustration, voice it. Don't be hesitant. You do have more power than you think, and let's hold this league accountable and make it as good as we can. And it's been a pleasure, Pete. I'm glad that you asked me to come on.
Here, man. Here. Anytime. We'll talk soon.